Yeah, I mean, it's obviously a pretty big occasion. I think any Test match is a big occasion, but I think there's obviously a big rivalry there. From a personal point of view, I've got a Scottish grandmother. I've got a Scottish brother-in-law. One of my other sister's boyfriend's Scottish, so I'll just turn my phone off before the game. But no, it's good to have a bit of an edge, I think, to a game. I think sport in general, or rugby definitely. A few people have probably thought that it's gone away from those rivalries and that sort of not enmity, but anything underlying it. And I think having that edge is definitely a good thing for the game. Certainly for the fans, and anything that's good for the game, I think's to be welcomed. I think, especially like it brings a competitive edge. It brings some pressure, and I think it's one of those things you either embrace. It's going to be there anyway, so it's one of those things you either embrace and acknowledge or ignore. And I think it's much better to sort of embrace it and acknowledge it than to pretend it's not there.
Is it harder for you as England though, because as Sam Johnson said earlier in the week, everyone dislikes England?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably true of a lot of countries. So I don't think it's anything new in terms of hearing it. I don't think it's I don't know. It doesn't resonate too much with me. Like, it's not something that bothers me personally too much. I think, can't speak on behalf of everyone, but I think in general that's he's free to say what he wants to say, and so are any other teams. I think what's important is what happens on the pitch. Ultimately, as a player, we're here to perform, we're here to win, and to do our job as best we can, and to play the best rugby that we can. So, like I say, that edge will probably add to the sense of occasion, but that's all it is for me.
Given the last two Calcutta Cup matches, how they've gone, and what happened last week in Paris, how hungry is this team to win that cup back?
Incredibly so. Yeah, I think in terms of last week especially, as a player, when you've had a disappointing result, there's nothing more you want than another game. So we've got another chance, as a group to improve and to kind of show each other what we're about and to perform for one another. The fact that it just happens to be a Calcutta Cup is probably even better for us because there's more pressure, and I think ultimately pressure is something you need to perform at your best. You need to put yourselves under pressure, and for other people to put you under pressure.
If the result doesn't go your way tomorrow, is that your expectations over?
In terms of likelihood of winning it?
Come back and get your championship.
Well, likelihood of winning it, I'd imagine, but not in terms of. I'm not gonna talk about the result until it's happened, probably. But losing a rugby game is not the end of the world. Every team's done it, every player's done it. It's one of those things that happens, and I think the key thing is that you learn from it and you get better. So last week was obviously a good lesson for us, and obviously I also think it was a very, very good performance from a French side. I think that's important to acknowledge. But yeah, so for us, like I said, the pressure's on, which is something you can try and ignore and you can try and play down, or it's something you can embrace. And I think as players we've got to embrace it, because it's what creates good performances.
What's been the lesson you've learned personally from the last two games against Scotland, the last two Calcutta Cups?
I didn't play in the last one. I played here the last game at Murrayfield. I was on the bench. It was one of my first caps, first experience here at Murrayfield. It was probably my first insight into the sort of emotion of the occasion. I was probably a bit naive to it before. Sort of getting booed off the bus and stuff, and seeing the reaction of the Scottish players when they'd won, and seeing the crowd and how much it means to everyone up here. It's definitely something to acknowledge, and it's definitely there. You can't really ignore it, especially when it's as loud as Murrayfield is. But like I say, that's to be sort of embraced. I think as a player, it's something that you want to play in. Like you want to be in that position. You want to be under the most pressure you can be, because that means you're playing at the highest level you can play. And yeah, that for us as a player is what we want.
In those last two games against Scotland, Finn Russell has been central to Scotland's success. How much is a boost is it that he won't be there for Scotland?
Depends if you don't think Adam Hastings is any good. I think he's a pretty good player as well. I know obviously he used to be down at Bath. I know the boys spoke about him there, and obviously looks pretty sharp. So I don't think they'll have lost anything in terms of attacking flair. I think they're still pretty dangerous. So yeah, I don't think I think that'd be a disservice to Adam to say that they're missing anything.
Have you guys been able to pinpoint why Scotland have been able to find so many holes in England over the course of the last 2 meetings, which not many teams do against them?
No, they're obviously a very good attacking side. I think that's pretty key to acknowledge. Play with an awful lot of width. When they get aside you, they're hard to defend against. They've got some serious ball carriers. They've got some serious attacking threats. They've got about as good a ball carrying back row as you could have. They've got a pretty dangerous back three and centre field partnership to match. So that's probably why. It's because they're good at it. I don't think we've had too much of a, in terms of the last couple of games. I don't think it's to do too much with us being off the ball. I'd say that they're bringing a serious threat. So for us again, that's something we want to embrace and look forward to sort of facing.
Looking to defence, am I right in saying that you were being coached by Steve Tandy when you were Ospreys?
Yep.
How did he sort of improve your game, and what's your relationship with him? Are you looking forward to sort of catching up?
Yeah, probably improved my game by letting me play and picking me for a start. But mate, he was awesome. We had a good relationship for the 2 years I was there. Yeah, good coach, good sort of people manager. Which I think defensively, like a lot of the defence stuff is kind of about emotion as well, because it's still quite an emotional sport. I think, and you need that emotional energy, especially in something like your defence, because ultimately all it is you want to go forward more than the other guy does, and you want to push teams backwards, and you want to get off the line more than the other team does. So that's all it kind of boils down to, is how hard you work. So from that point of view, he was always good at getting guys up for it. And yeah, it'd be nice to catch up.
Have you seen him make a noticeable impact to the Scottish defence?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like I said, I didn't play in the last Six Nations, so I had nothing, play-wise to compare it to. But yeah, certainly looked pretty good against Ireland. Certainly looked pretty connected and energetic. And you obviously got guys that'll thrive in that sort of environment. Guys like your Jamie Ritchie's phenomenal work rate. That as a defensive sort of as a team defending, those are the guys you kind of want, because that work rate brings so much energy to the team. If you can get on top of a team defensively, emotionally it has a big impact, I think.
What about your grandfather, Sam? What do you imagine the message would be from tomorrow?
She doesn't watch rugby, fortunately. She just, I think she probably sends my dad a snarky message and is his mother-in-law, so that adds a little bit to it as well. Yeah, she was from the Borders. So yeah, I'll catch up within the week, probably, depending on how the result goes. Probably depend how that goes as well. But
Sam, saw the success that you and Tom were able to achieve in the World Cup when you were both on the flank. Has that dynamic changed with Tom moving to number 8?
Not really. At scrum time, obviously, yeah. It's a new role for him. So from my point of view, not much changes. I'm just trying to myself and the other back rows kind of just got to support him in that new role as much as possible. So I know he's worked pretty tirelessly at it, especially about keeping the ball in at the base. So we're but seriously, it's been impressive how well he's taken to it, considering it's a big shift. He hasn't been daunted by it in the slightest, and I hope it's something that he obviously has success in, because he's a great guy to be with on the pitch.
Do you feel a responsibility as a back row unit to make it as easy as possible for him?
I'd like to think we all do that anyway, like with each other as a back row, kind of look after each other. But yeah, I suppose like from a one technical point of view, yeah, that would be the new skill that he's had to learn. But I think he's doing it pretty well, and there's no better way to learn than by doing it at this level, I guess.
Sam, arguably the best two performances in 2019 for England were away in Dublin and the semi-final against New Zealand, where you started both games as the underdog. How would you go about getting the right physical and emotional place, whether you're favourites or an underdog? You'll start as heavy favourites tomorrow.
I'd say that's a disservice to the Scottish team. I think that as a player, you don't really think about that sort of stuff. I know, like in the media, you've got to write about your favourites and your underdogs and stuff, but I think as professional rugby players, you know that any team's capable of beating any team. There's nothing that's ever done for you before you get there. I think certainly the English media is probably guilty of doing that a little bit. I don't think the players do it. I don't think we ever think that anything's done before we're there. So it's the same. I think every game. Obviously, the stuff like the World Cup is, the occasion of it's huge. So like it brings an emotional energy to it that's easier to if you can't get up for a World Cup, you shouldn't be there. So like from that point of view, obviously there's a lot of added emotional energy there anyway. But yeah, I think as a player, it's about getting yourself in the right headspace, whatever that is to you. You've got some guys that are, like to get, pretty aggressive and pretty wound up for a game. Some guys like to be very relaxed and clear-headed, and some guys like to be somewhere in between the two. So I think it's an individual responsibility to get yourself right for any game, and you sort of give that off to the players around you.
Okay, thank you.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks, Sam.